Social media, whether you love it or hate it, it's become a necessary part of building a business these days. In this episode, we're going to cover some tips of how to make it easier, less time consuming, and more effective to help you grow your business. So whether you're just starting out or you've been doing this for a while, I think you're going to take some things away that will help get more people in your classes. So if that sounds good to you, grab a coffee or some kind of tasty beverage, pull up a chair, and let's chat about marketing and social media. Well, hey, friend, in this episode of the Jesus Coffee Yoga podcast, I am bringing on a special guest, Jessica Ledgerwood, who's part of our team and helps do some of our social media and also works with Kristen in her local studio, helping manage her social media accounts as well. And she's a yoga teacher and does this for herself. So she's got a lot of experience and, like a lot of you, had to start from scratch, had to start from nowhere to build her audience, build her following, and help these other accounts also do the same thing. Okay, so thanks for joining me on this episode. When I first thought about doing a marketing or social media episode in particular, you came to mind right away. And I wanted to bring you on and just share some really practical things to help people with their social media efforts. But also, I want to talk more about the mindset and messaging and some things that get in the way of people using social media or using it effectively. So before we dive into tactics and all the fun stuff, like everyone wants to know, like, where should I post? And like, tell me all the tactical stuff. It's really more important to discuss some of these other things first, because if you're not saying the right thing to the right people, none of the other stuff matters. It doesn't matter if you do everything else right if your messaging is off. So I want to start first with what gets in the way, like what keeps people from posting or posting enough, like maintaining consistently, and then we'll start to address those things. So what would you say is the number one thing that gets in the way?
Probably fear. It's fear of judgment and fear of putting themselves out there. Fear that they're gonna seem too spammy or whatever to their friends, family.
Why is fear such a big deal? Like why does this stop so many people?
Just thinking back whenever I first started posting, and fear can be extremely debilitating. It was for me. It was like I would know what to do and how to do it and all of the things, but then actually like putting it out there, something was always holding me back from that. And I think that that's a lot of us. I think a lot of us get worried that maybe even that what we're putting out there is not good enough, or that people aren't gonna want to respond or come. And I think the first step in that, if that's you and you're having a hard time posting and putting yourself out there, is to just remember that this is you're not doing this to just benefit yourself. I mean, yes, you're having a business and you're going to earn money and all of the things from doing this, but you also sign up to be a yoga teacher for a reason. It's not to just make money. I mean, we can make money doing whatever. Um, but you care about people and you want to help them, and you maybe you know that the impact that yoga has had in your own life, and you just want to give that to other people. And so just reminding yourself that you're in a service industry, that you are not here again just to make money. You're here to help people, and you're not just selling yourself. You're providing something that's going to benefit other people's lives.
We've covered some of this stuff recently about money mindset. Episode 27 is a good place to start if you deal with that. But just to briefly summarize my thoughts on this is that money is just a tool. It's not good or bad. It's just a thing. And also, oftentimes, the amount of money you generate or make is tied to the amount of value you create. And so, or really the amount of people that you help. So, the more people you help, the more money you'll create. And if you view it like that, you're helping people. And in return, they're exchanging value. You're providing value, and they're exchanging something else of value, which is money. And we all need money to survive. Like, I don't know why it's so easy to get in the way sometimes when faith is involved, because we feel like it's a ministry, and because we're helping people with their spiritual life, we shouldn't get compensated for that. But I really don't think that should be a thing. So if that is a thing for you, check out those other episodes. 27 is where we started. Episode 28 and 29, then go into some other topics on making money as a yoga teacher. So check those out if you haven't listened to those. And really, if you look at it like this way, you are doing people a disservice by not talking about how you help them. You are actually hurting people by not talking about how you help them. And if you can frame it that way, I feel like it really opens things up that now I need to start telling people how I can help them because I'm hurting them if I don't.
And to follow up with that, once you start putting yourself out there, you're going to be able to find the people that you're actually called to serve. It is incredibly scary to put yourself out there, but I think if you look at it as just fulfilling your God-given purpose and finding the people that you can connect with. And it just doesn't seem so scary. It doesn't seem so threatening, I guess, because you know that you're just doing what you've been called to do and that what Jesus wants you to do.
How is it that you figure out that the person that you're called to reach, or like what does that journey look like?
For me, whenever I was trying to find the people that I was led to reach, it ended up coming just kind of authentically out of the areas that I've been in my life that are have been challenging to me. I have like several medical things, and throughout that, like yoga was one of the things that helped me to kind of push past that and deal with some of my symptoms and things like that. And so I kind of noticed, like, after putting myself out there and talking about my own passion of helping people find peace and freedom in their body and things like that, that the people that ended up coming to my classes were also people that had ailments or issues with their body. And then I realized, like, that's who I'm called to lead. Like, I'm called to lead the people that were in the place that I was in. And I think everybody's different in that way. I mean, I know everybody's different in that way. And there's something that you've been through or something that you have overcome. And I mean, those might be your people. Or finding your people might have to do with just the things that you feel really passionate about and that you love. Like if you like that higher energy and it makes you feel good and it brings happiness to you, those that might be the type of people that you need to find, are the ones that like that high energy and stuff. But I think as soon as you just get honest with what you want out of this class or what you usually receive out of the class and you put that in onto paper, those people are going to find you.
Yeah, I think you touched on a really important point there, that you just lead from where you're at.
Mm.
There's another thing that people in the marketing world say: speak to the person that you were just a couple years ago. So if you're a little unsure about what to post about or what to talk about or who you're trying to reach, look at that person you were a few years ago. Like, what were your struggles? What things were you working through, and how did you overcome and get through that? And now you can help other people in that same spot. Or you might be in the middle of something right now and you can lead from that place. You don't have to be perfect and have it all figured out. You're on your journey as well. And I think just leading confidently through that, that God has called you to reach a certain type of person or person in a certain situation or with certain struggles or whatever. I think you just intuitively know. There's a part of you that should just kind of know these are the kind of people that I feel like God has called me to help. If you don't know that yet, I think it's just you just have to do a lot of stuff. Just try things. And
Yeah.
over time, you'll start to see what lands. You start to see what sticks to the wall and what doesn't. But by doing nothing, you're prolonging that phase of figuring out who it is that you're called to serve. So if you're doing nothing, hopefully this episode will light a fire under your rear to get going and to start making progress toward that and figuring out who it is that you're trying to serve.
And something like something that came to mind whenever you were saying that is just like being the person. I mean, you said this, but being the person that you needed in that time, like who did you need or who did you wish that was in your corner at that point in time, and just be that person for those people.
So we're going a little out of order and even diving into messaging before I was ready to, but that just ties so well into that you need to know who it is you're called to reach or who it is you're trying to help so that your messaging and what you post lines up with that. Sometimes we get flack for this. We've said it before when we talk about, reaching the right people. And like, I'm for everybody. We're inclusive. We're whatever. Blah 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 blah. You are called to serve a certain type of person, someone who's struggling with something or whatever that is. There are people that you are uniquely designed, equipped, prepared to reach, who someone else is not called and prepared to reach. And by trying to be everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to nobody. Let that sink in for a second. If you are so general and you're avoiding being specific, you will end up reaching nobody. You're just adding to the noise, And the right person will not stop the scroll and go, "Oh my gosh, she's speaking to me. Yeah, I struggle with that. Yeah, that's what I want." So you really have to put in this work to know, who is it that I'm trying to reach? What are their pain points? What are their struggles? What keeps them up at night? What are their hopes and dreams and desires? And when you know those things, it helps you craft messages that resonate with them and can really just cut through the noise and stop the scroll. Because that's really one of our hardest parts as a marketer. And if you're a business owner, you are also a marketer, whether you want to be or not. It's just a necessary thing to cut through the noise and to stop someone from scrolling to get them to read your message.
I was just gonna say, and in that, you have to remember that also, like, there's only one person with your specific personality and only one person in the world with your specific things that you've been through. And so, and but the different areas of your life, I've noticed also that different things that I've gone through or different areas of my life and different seasons I'm in, even that I meet different people. And it doesn't mean that they're gonna have all you're gonna be exactly alike, but you can relate to them in certain areas and help them move through it and find ways to cope and just I don't know, even just being a friendly face, like a smiling face to them whenever they get to come into class. Like some people just that's really why they end up coming. It's just because the way that you make them feel whenever they come through the doors and obviously the way you make them feel throughout your class and how they feel leaving your class.
Back to the fear conversation. You had mentioned it's really important to remember your why. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, one, how do you come up with your why? And like, how do you use that as you're trying to market and grow your classes?
I think we all have a why. I mean, that's why there's a reason why you decided to become a yoga instructor in the first place. And again, whether that's just because you've gone through something and it's helped you in certain times in your life, or you just see the benefit of it, or you just want to connect with people, or maybe you're like one of those people who just grew up and you're like, I've always wanted to be a yoga instructor. Whatever it is, like there's a why behind it. I think that sometimes it can be as simple as I just wanna, like, money wise, I just wanna help make an extra income for my family or whatever it is. But then, I mean, I would, like, challenge you to go deeper than that because there are other ways, again, to make money, and you're doing this because there's something in it that you feel other people need. And so, for me, I have 2 whys. Like, one of them I always remember is that just I wanna help people that were where I was at, and like we said, just being that person for them that I felt like I needed, and that I actually did get to have, through mentorship with Kristen and, working at the studio and stuff, and I think that that's inspired me a lot too. I wanna be that for other people, just to help walk get in the pit with them and walk through the things with them and but then my other why is because I have a kid who's looking up to me. Like I think of her in terms of me. Like if she wanted this for her life or if she was wanting to do something like this, like of course I would encourage her in all the ways and I'd be like, don't like I would absolutely tell her don't be afraid to put yourself out there even though people are going to judge you and even though because they're judging you anyways. And so I my other why is for her. And if I start to lose track of why I'm doing the things, I mean, for me that's she's my anchor. Just knowing that I'm doing this for her, to be a good example to her and to show her what it looks like to chase after your dreams and the things that you want to do and things you feel called and led to do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, what I would encourage people to do if you haven't done this is sit down with a journal or your computer if you're a techie person instead and spend some time reflecting on your whys. Like, why is this so important to you? So, we previously just did an episode on dreaming and really how to design the best years of your life, how to connect with your big why and all that stuff. So, if you missed that one, make sure you check that one out. But I do want to encourage you to at least reflect on what are your whys? Why are you doing this? And try to make it bigger than just I just want to teach yoga. Because when times are hard, and there will be hard times, you need something stronger to help keep you anchored. Like you said, I love that word, anchor, to keep you anchored into why you're doing this to help you push through those times when you're tired, when you're sick, when you have a baby. And I mean, anytime you have a baby, that's just hard. There are many things, illnesses, just different things that can make it hard. financial issues, low class attendance, haters, or people, I don't know, like drama, like things will happen. It will get hard at some point, and it has to be bigger than just I just love teaching yoga, because at some point you might not love it as much as you used to, and there needs to be something else driving you forward. You had mentioned judgment, and I think that's a fear most of us have, and it never really goes away at any level, or as you grow in awareness and brand awareness, you tend to attract more and more haters, and it's just the way it goes. But speak to me a little bit about the judgment and what your thoughts are, how you approach that, and how you got over that. You had said something. I don't want to use your words. I want to give you the chance to say it. But like, what are your thoughts on the judgment side of things?
So, as far as people judging you, people are going to judge you no matter what you do. If you're trying to live your life carefully and cautiously because you're worried about people judging you, it's not working. Like they're judging you anyway, so you might as well do what you feel called and led to do. You might as well live out your God-given purpose, because the alternative, I mean, like I said, people are just judging. They're judging you anyway, whether you want to believe that or not. I think we worry about judgment a lot. I think it's like in our DNA to want to connect with people, and we worry about fitting in and having that community and stuff. And I mean, I think that this is like ancient roots. Like, I think that that's the reason why we all feel this way, and we can all. It just doesn't go away that we worry about that judgment, because in order to survival, we have to, we had to have other people, and the more people you had, the more you were able to survive. So just knowing that for me anyways has been really helpful for me, because I realize where it's coming from. And then I remember, well, they're judging me anyways, so I might as well be doing what I feel led to do.
Yeah, and just to add on to that thought that you're gonna be judged either way, I would rather be judged for trying, for putting myself out there, because sometimes fear comes down to, "What if I try and it doesn't work?" And some of us are motivated by that fear of, like, "I don't wanna be embarrassed because I tried and I failed." But I would rather be judged for that, trying and failing, than for not trying at all, for being someone who just stays small and never does anything. So I would rather, and really, most people are not even gonna be at your funeral when you die. Why would you care? Why would you let what someone who doesn't even care enough to show up to your funeral, why would you let what they think stop you from trying to achieve your dreams or achieve the things that God set you, the reason God put you on this earth? Why would you let that get in the way? They don't even care enough to come to your funeral. And the ones who do won't care. They won't judge you. If anything else, it'll inspire others to reach for their dreams, to take the steps necessary to go out there. The ones who care, the ones who will say something are not your people. And there is an element of attracting a little bit of attention, and attention you don't want, maybe a little bit of hate. They're not your people, and there is an element of having to grow some thick skin and just not worrying about it and letting it roll off your back like water off a duck's back. So next I want to move into more of the messaging side of this. And we've already touched on it a little bit, but I want to take it a little bit further and just give some practical tips on how to figure out who you're for and who you help. Like, to me, that's what messaging really comes down to, is who do I help and how do I help them? And when you can frame everything you do through this lens to help the right people see or read or hear what it is you have to say, like, that's really what it's all about. So when it comes time to actually post things, to come up with what it is that you want to say, how do you go about refining that message? And when I say message, it's not necessarily like the exact words you're going to type in a post. When I talk about messaging, it's your overarching theme of who do you help and how do you help them. In our pre-planning, you had said something about the instant gratification and how people tend to post more
Yeah.
long-term type things when they should be focusing a little bit more on the short term. And before you go into that, just where I like to go with this when I'm coaching people is, as the expert, you know what they really need. But as the student, they only know their symptoms, which is often caused by a deeper issue, but they don't know that. And so some people will focus on that longer term thing, that deeper root issue. But when the person doesn't know that that's really what's causing their more short term symptoms that they're experiencing, there's a disconnect, and they'll just, like, that will not stop the scroll because they only know their pain points and their symptoms. They only know the symptoms of how that problem shows up in their day-to-day life. So I think what you had said really lines up with that. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, about the instant gratification world that we live in, and how does that play into how you do social media posts?
I feel like everything that we do these days, like this is why people don't end up working out as often, and it's a lot easier for them to do something physically, like for themselves, like get their nails done or their hair done, because you see the change immediately. But I believe it's like this with everything that we do, and we know as yoga instructors that over time of doing yoga, you get more flexible, you get more resilient, you have better control over your stress and anxiety, and then you just have all of these tools in your toolbox. Just the other day, Kristen and I were getting out of the truck, and she had all of her stuff in her arms, and the truck door was open, and so she like warrior three the door shut. And I was like, we just don't think about all of the different ways that our bodies need to move and can move until we get in there. But on the flip side of things, people who are just coming into yoga or just coming into your class, because this is obviously, if you've got people that have been coming to your classes, they know. Like they know the benefit of it and they're noticing it in their lives. But for new people, they don't know what they're going to get out of this. And it's harder for them to see long term effects. So if you're putting on there over time, this and this, well, they want to know how they're going to feel now because of the instant gratification world that we live in. So make sure that whenever you're making these posts that you are hitting those pain points and then mentioning something about how your class, just this class or just this series or whatever it is that you're launching, is going to help them. Like, how are they going to feel after class? How are they going to feel whenever the series is over? And you can even lead with something like, do you want to feel better in your body, or do you want to have more flexibility, or do you, if it's just one class, like I have a lot of classes that I have that are centered around peace and calming the nervous system. And so something I might say would be, have you been stressed and overwhelmed? And do you want to feel calmer or at ease or have a sense of peace or even just connect in more with God and have that time alone with him for an hour or whatever it is. And so I think that speaks to them more than yoga helps you have better life in the long term. Like, I don't know. I think they need to know like why they need your class and why you want them to be in your class. And then I'll like allowing that to resonate through your posts. So whatever it is you wanting them to feel in your class, you can make a post as like a little micro taste or example of how they'll feel coming out of their class. So maybe even just by reading your post, they feel like they can breathe better. That's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, I think that's great. And what you'll find is that when people are first getting into something, so if we're talking about trying to branch out and build your audience, grow your classes, bring new people into yoga, they may very well fall in love with it and want to do it every day. Hopefully they will.
Mhm.
But in the beginning, they're going to be more resistant to a long-term commitment. So if what they want is going to require a big commitment, they're much less likely to say yes. But when you can focus on that one thing, hey, this one class, you'll feel this way at the end of this class. That feels like a much smaller commitment. Get them in the door, get them experiencing this, and then eventually they'll love it and they'll stay long term. And then you start to teach them and they start to learn like, hey, this is how, yeah, it helps you feel better today, but when you do this consistently, it also helps you in these other ways. And so I think just the main point there is you don't lead with that. That I think some of your posts can be about that, but other posts need to be about the short term. What do they get from this class? So I love that thought.
People that don't practice yoga aren't super mindful as well. So sometimes I think even just by letting them know, like your shoulders are going to be, you're going to, are you clenching your shoulders and your jaw all the time? And you just want to let that go or release that. Like, people aren't really paying attention to that. But maybe when they're reading that, they're like, oh yeah, I'm doing it right now, like all tense and everything. And I think that just helps too, just to like, we have to remember they're not used to meditating or the body awareness and things like that too. And I think that's a big part of it as well. So if you just let them know, and then when they come to your class, if they came to your class before coming, they'll notice these things, because sometimes we do things and we don't notice the actual benefit because we have a hard time tapping into like what's happening in our body. So I think
Yeah.
sometimes they're like, oh, I've been told that I'm going to feel peaceful after this. And then they come to your class and they're like, I do feel peaceful, or I do feel more relaxed and better. And so that kind of helps create that awareness for them as well.
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of us really we have not been taught that. We have most of us, unless we had a parent who did yoga, we're
Mhm.
not really taught to tap into that and to really be in touch with our body. A lot of us just live on our heads constantly. So to have that teaching to bring us into awareness, and even there, your posts can be about that.
Mhm.
One tip I like to instruct people to lead with maybe or ifs. This so just to jump into a tactical tip, a lot of people will do what I call mind reading.
Mm.
So once you figured out who it is you're helping, how you help them, sometimes some posts can come across as if you're the know-it-all and we're like, I see you, I know you, you struggle with this. When really you're like, you don't even know me. Like, I don't know, the little rebellious Nick comes out like, you don't know me. Like, when I read a post like that, like, you don't even know me. Like it just puts me on the defense. So try to write things more of a if or maybe. Just some examples. Maybe you're like a lot of my students and you find yourself blah, 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 blah. Or you can just ask questions. Do you ever notice that your shoulders are super tense? That's a great way to instantly put it. Well, let me check. Actually, yeah, I am feeling pretty tense. So they're just you can ask questions or lead with a if you're like me, if you're like a lot of my students, or you can lead with a maybe. Maybe lately you've done this, or maybe you're struggling with this. It feels a little less defensive, and you're like, oh, that is me. Also, if there's multiple things in your post, leading with a maybe, they'll probably continue to read, even if that first thing doesn't apply. But if you've got a bullet point list you're trying to get through and like the first few doesn't apply to them and you're like, I see you struggling with blah, blah, blah. I instantly am like, oh, this isn't for me because those first ones didn't relate. But if it was, again, the maybe kind of leading me through, like, maybe you struggle with this and this. And I'm like, nope. But the third one, like, oh, yeah, that's me. It allows me to get through more of the post before I just check out. So practical tip there on your actual wording and messaging.
So using words like maybe and might, or does this sound like you?
Yep. And I love the low key if you're like a lot of my students, like right out of the gate, you're keeping it open. You're letting people know you have students and they're not the only one. You know, it lends a little authority to what you have to say when you phrase it that way. Speak to me a little bit about how to sprinkle your personality into things because I know sometimes it can be hard to want to be more like yourself. Again, it comes down to the judgment thing. Maybe we think people want us to speak a certain way, or we see what other people are doing and we're trying to kind of duplicate what they're doing or be similar to them. How do you look at that? How do you go about making sure that you are in there and overriding that fear of being yourself?
I think it's healthy and good for us to look at other yoga teachers and kind of see what they're doing and maybe how they're formulating their posts or how they're coming across. But we don't ever want to just copy and paste because you're not a copy and paste. You're not a duplicate of them. And so I think again, just coming back to your why. So after you find your why, or if you already know what it is, just coming back to that and then leading from that place. So even if you use some sort of AI or something to help you make posts, I think you should I think you need to go in still and just change it to how you would talk and how you would word it because what's gonna set your classes apart from everybody else's is that you're not everybody else. If you end up putting yourself out there and it's not you, it doesn't sound like you, it doesn't sound like what you're passionate about, you will find people that are gonna come to your class and expect a certain thing from you. And then when they see you in reality and in person, they might be like, this is not who I learned to, this girl was online. Like, you know, you're high energy with all your posts and they come to class and it's like a yin class or a deep stretch class, they're going to be confused. Yeah, I think it's important just to make sure that you are putting yourself in there, even if it is scary. Because again, people are judging you anyways.
People connect with people, and trying to be everything to everybody just doesn't work. There are definitely people that you are not for. Your personality, the way you do things just won't be a fit, and that's okay because there are people who you are for. And I think it's really important to be who you are. Now, there might be parts of your personality that maybe you're a little rough around the edges, and there are things that we all should be working on to improve and whatever. But you don't change at the core of who you are.
Right.
And I think it's really important to be that. And that's what will help differentiate you from someone else. So if you're just trying to copy the studio down the road, it's not going to work. So I think it's important to look at what others are doing for ideas and inspiration, but make it your own. And whether that's seeing a post that someone else did and like, ooh, I like that. I'm gonna do one like that. I think that's great. And actually, I encourage people to keep what's called a swipe file. And I didn't invent this, but it's a common marketing thing where when you see something that you like, something that inspires you, something that makes you think, something that makes you feel something, a post, just anything, you're like, I like that. I want to do that for me. Copy that. So always have somewhere that whether you're on your phone or on a computer or anywhere, have access to that place where you stash it. It can just be simple as have a note or a folder in your notes or a Google Doc, just somewhere where you want to keep it, but somewhere digital so you can take screenshots or whatever. And anytime you come across something that inspires you or that you want to do something similar, take a screenshot, copy and paste, whatever, put it in that swipe file. And then later, when you're trying to come up with posts, you can look at that swipe file and like, oh yeah, that's right. I want to do a post on that and make it your own. So it's totally fine to do that and look for others for inspiration, but make it your own.
Yeah.
And I would say, just like you said with ChatGPT, do the same thing. It's a great ChatGPT or other AI tools are a great way to come up with ideas, but I've never seen AI write something that's just like, that was great by itself. Like I always have to tweak it a little bit. Even though I've trained it and it is getting better, you can usually tell when someone has just taken something from ChatGPT, especially, and pasted it because it all sounds the same. So next, I just want to give some actual practical tips on how to do some of this stuff and how to make it more efficient, more effective, and just make it less annoying. I'm in the camp of like, I really don't like social media, but it is a necessary, I don't want to call it evil, but it is necessary. I know it's necessary. I don't love social media, so I find it kind of hard to get excited about it. But even personally, I'm trying to change the way that I view it and look at it like it's another tool to help me connect with the right people, the people that I can help, people that I'm called to serve. So I find that helps a little bit with my motivation and my attitude about it. First, I want to touch on ideas. So I know a lot of people ask me, like, how do you keep coming up with ideas? Like, I feel like I'm running out of ideas. A few ideas I had for ideas, that sounds redundant, is to think through or list out, spend some time actually writing out pain points and struggles, hopes and dreams. Like, what are the things that the people I'm called to serve, the people that I'm trying to help, or if it's easier, the person that I was a few years ago that I'm trying to help, what are the things that are keeping them up at night? What are the things they're worried about? What do they look at? What are they saying to themselves when they look at themselves in the mirror? Like, think about that. What are their pain points and struggles? How do, like, even though you know the problem, the root cause, or maybe you don't, but if you do, how do those things show up for them in their daily life? What are the symptoms they're experiencing? Generate as many ideas as you can. And even that you can start to feed to AI. So I love working with AI and looking at it as like an assistant. I think it's a great assistant. You can feed it things, you can give it past things you've done, and then that can help train it to write like you write and to help refine some of the stuff that you do. But pain points and struggles is my number one go-to when I'm trying to come up with ideas. I also think through what are some frequently asked questions. So what questions do I get a lot from new people or not new people? What questions do I get asked a lot? What are some common myths or misconceptions? Things that people believe. A lot of people believe it's this, but actually it's this. And then customer stories or testimonials, your own personal stories. Those are all things that I like to draw on when I'm trying to come up with ideas. And then the swipe file that I already mentioned. Something I've learned from Kristen is that you can reuse old posts. So hopefully you use some kind of tool. And if you don't, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But you can look at other posts that you've done and just like use a different picture. Or you can tweak it if you need to, but sometimes she'll just post the same exact thing she's done, a year ago or whatever, and just use a different picture. And then you can also repurpose something. So let's say you have a text-based post that you've done. You can make a video version of that, or vice versa. Maybe you do a video and you can turn that into a text post or with images. Like there's a lot of ways you can reuse what you've already done or repurpose things you've already done and get even more mileage out of that. And then, as I mentioned, you can use AI, ChatGPT. I actually really like a tool called Claude AI. I find it's better for more creative stuff. I think that they both have free versions. You miss out on some of the cool tools that they have, like projects and stuff. But it's still pretty valuable, even the free versions. So next, I want to talk about how to stay organized. I think a lot of yogis, a lot of people on the more creative side are less organized, and sometimes that can get in the way of posting and posting consistently. Because if you don't have some kind of system, it is hard to keep up with it. It's hard to keep track of what's been done and what have you already said. And when it comes time to post, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to post today. And if you don't have some kind of system in place, it makes all that so much harder. So I recommend using at least some kind of notes app. I think that works great. You can have like a folder for social media posts. You can have subfolders if you want for like ideas and like stuff that's in work, and then things that are ready, and then like things that are posted. And if that sounds overwhelming, just have one huge folder with no organization. I find that overwhelming because I can't find anything. But just do something, do whatever works for you. You know what you'll actually do. Don't overcomplicate the process, but you need a process. Another tool that I like to use is Trello. So I tend to like more of the visual, like let's say you have a whiteboard and you can write things on sticky notes, and you can have like columns on the whiteboard and move the sticky notes around. That's just kind of how my brain works, and Trello is really designed to work that way. You can have columns for different statuses or different types of things, and then you can have a card, they call it, which to me is like a sticky note, and just keep track of stuff related to that card. And you can get as complicated or simple as you like, but find a tool that works for you, something you'll actually stick with consistently, and that'll really help a lot.
I was just gonna say, you know that a lot of yogis are disorganized because you've worked with us. And I mean, until I started working with you and learning these organizational things from you, my stuff was just all over the place. So it's helped streamline things a lot. So I mean, it's totally worth it, even if it's not your thing. It's totally worth it to do it. It's so helpful.
Yeah, for me, a big part of my platform on what I do outside of Christian C yoga, so like video production and content creation, a lot of what I talk about is reducing friction. There's so much friction in what you do as a business owner. There's so many things that make it harder. And everything that you can do to reduce that friction will help fuel your growth, or just make it easier. Like who doesn't want life to be a little bit easier? I know I do. So anything that gets in the way of you posting more and doing things you know that will help grow the business, do that. Even if it's not you. Oh, that's not my personality. Well, put on your big girl pants, your big boy pants. Okay. As a business owner, there's just a lot of hats you wear, and there's stuff you need to do to be more successful. And so even if you're not organized, you need to get organized. The trick is just coming up with a system that will work for you and that you'll stick to. So next I want to talk about batching. So it's really important to block out chunks of time for doing an activity and doing a bunch of that activity at that same time. Because there's this concept of switch tasking. There's no true multitasking. I know women think they can multitask. And yeah, if you're doing something autonomous like chewing gum or folding clothes and listening to a podcast, like, yeah, you can do that. You cannot actively be thinking about two different things. You can switch between things, and I think women are pretty fast at that in general, and men are a little bit more it's like single focus, single track. But there is a cost, especially when you're doing something like deep work and thinking and creative. There is a cost to when you stop that thing and switch to another thing of spooling up in your mind and getting in the zone, getting into where did I leave off on this thing? And so the time it takes to get in the zone and do one thing, you really could do a bunch of those things. So batching is crucial, I feel, for being consistent with stuff. So what this looks like is when you're coming up with ideas, don't just sit there and come up with one idea and then develop that one post and then post it. That is exhausting. There are times where you need to do that because like, crap, I need to post today, so I'm going to do that. But fight to build in some time in your schedule to say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes this morning just coming up with ideas. Because you'll notice once you get in the zone, it'll start to flow real fast. So do that ideation, and then batch some time to build out those ideas. So schedule some time on a day to say, you know what, today I'm gonna write. It's a writing day, and I'm gonna take some of these ideas and I'm gonna start fleshing them out a little bit. Because once you get in the zone, again, it's easier to do more of that thing, and then schedule some time to actually do the posting or the scheduling or whatever. So batching is really important. If you're going to take pictures, we'll talk about pictures here in a minute. Batch some time to do a bunch of that. Get in the zone, knock a bunch out. Instead of the one post, I'm gonna come up with one idea and like, oh, now I gotta write, and now I gotta switch into, oh, I need a picture. And there's a lot of setup involved sometimes with this stuff.
Yeah.
Getting set up to take pictures or to make videos. So capitalize on that setup time and knock a bunch out. Again, back to the batching concept.
I was gonna say you can just bring a different shirt, like a different outfit, so that you have maybe stuff in a long sleeve shirt for like winter stuff, and maybe it's like a tank top or short sleeve shirt or whatever for your summer stuff. And that way you actually have that stuff to use later whenever you don't want to get out in the cold or whatever. It's just a thought.
Yep. Or you can put your hair up, put your hair down, like just
Mhm.
any little things you can do to make them look different.
Yeah.
So now that we're talking about pictures, why don't we talk about that a little further? I think pictures can be something that gets in the way. People are like, I don't have good pictures, so they just don't post.
Mhm.
The first thing I would say, you don't have to have professional pictures, but it is helpful. So what I recommend is trying to reach out to some friend. Maybe you have a friend who's a photographer and you can offer trade. Hey, will you come take some pictures of me? And in return, you can have X amount of free yoga. Or like maybe say, hey, can I, because if they're like a high-end photographer, like that's a lot of yoga. But maybe you can just trade for a discount or something like that. And then also you can use your phone. Phones take great pictures these days, and you can either set up the timer, or what Kristen does, I learned this from her, she'll just record a video. So she'll put it in video mode and then record doing some different poses. Because what you can do is pull up that video, pause it, and then take a screenshot. And now you've got a picture of that. One tip I want to give you, a pro tip here, is that you can, at least on an iPhone, I only know iPhones. You can go into the settings and set it to 60 FPS, frames per second, because I think 30 is the default. And what that means is when you're shooting video, what it's doing is it's taking a ton of pictures. So at 30 FPS, it's taking essentially 30 pictures a second. When you set it to 60, now it's taking 60 pictures a second. Now these aren't, when you're making video, it's not like as high quality as taking an actual picture, because I don't want to get too nerdy, but all the pixels when you're taking a picture are just there. And in video, there's no way they could take that much detail 60 times in a second, or the files would just be massive. So it's not quite as good. But when you shoot at 60, you're doing video at 60 frames a second, you have a lot more frames to choose from when you're trying to find that perfect frame, especially if there's movement. So if you're at 30 and there's movement, it can be a little blurry and it can be hard sometimes to get, especially if you're trying to do like a headstand or something where you're like, I got it. It's like you need like, I hope I was in it before I fell down. So by shooting at 60 frames per second, you have more frames, or hopefully one of those is not blurry. So there's a pro tip.
I think even like if you feel like you don't have a whole lot of time to do stuff like that, because I hear that a lot, that people feel like they don't have time to take pictures. I would recommend just taking them like right after your yoga class, or showing up to a yoga class a little earlier than students are going to show up, and just maybe just record yourself doing part of the flow that you're going to do, and just go slow and do some of the flow. And that's where a lot of my pictures, just like my candid kind of pictures, have come from. It's just, I mean, it's not candid, but you know, have come from those just showing up a little early, or after everybody leaves, I stay a little bit later and I'll just take like a little video or something. And that way you're already in your yoga outfit, like you already know what you're doing, and you're just stacking it on top of your class that you're already there, and Matt's already set up and everything. So
That's a great idea. I think listening to this episode is worth it just for that one tip. Tools. So I love Canva. Canva is easy. It's simple. It can do a lot. I have the paid version, so sometimes I forget like what's available in the free, what's available in the paid, but I think even the free account can do a lot of the stuff.
yeah, there's quite a bit. You just don't have as much access to some of the different photos or things, but there's a lot of free stuff on there, and I would absolutely make it work.
I really believe it's worth paying because it's like, I don't know, $12 a month or something. It's not crazy expensive, but it's a great tool and it's really easy to use.
Yeah, it's cheaper than Netflix.
And I view a lot of this stuff, software, as investments in growing my business because that's really what it is. And it's not an expense. It's an investment because it can make you look more professional. It can just help you do a better job and earn more money. So I view it like that. This is an investment. Real quick tip when you're making graphics. So when I say graphics, to me, a graphic it can be a picture or it can be just words or it's both. It's picture with some words on it. But making a graphic so it's not just a picture. Keep it as clean as possible, as clutter free as possible. You don't need to put all the details. Let's say you're making a post about a class or an offering. You don't have to have all the details on the picture and in the post. So I really feel like the post can have all the details. No, don't lead with the details. Pro tip, man, I'm giving away some gold here too. Pro tip, we all tend to want to lead with like the details. This class, it's at this time on this day. Like, no, lead with, like Jessica said earlier, how does this make them feel? How will this benefit them? Lead with the benefits, the value, and then below that, you can include the details. Because it's the benefits, it's how you'll make them feel, it's how you'll solve a problem. That's what draws them in, not I have a class Tuesday at 9 p.m. Like or 9 p.m. No, please don't teach at 9 p.m. Like, don't lead with the details is where I was going with that.
I would also to add on to that, I would also say to not put the price on your graphic. Just because that's the first thing people are gonna look for, and then they're not even going to think about how it might benefit them. I mean, they're quicker to drop money on things again that are instant gratification. But if they get from your post that, oh, I will be instantly gratified as soon as I get there. I don't know. It just I just wouldn't put the price on there. We don't ever put the price on like in our local studio. We don't do that unless we're offering like some sort of discount and we want them to know how much they're getting off. So we would put the price and slash through it this much. But I would say that too. So
Yeah, that's a great tip. Otherwise, they may discount what it is you have to offer before they even have a chance to read through it, right? Like they see the price, they're going to instantly devalue it potentially. Oh, that sounds like a lot of money. Like, yeah, but if they would have read through how this benefits them and how it'll make them feel better, they're much more likely to then invest in themselves. And when you help them see it as an investment, right? Like sometimes you need to frame it for them because they're only looking at it like, man, that's a lot of money to spend. Like, yeah, but for the price of a fancy cup of coffee, you can feel better today. Like, just there's a way you can frame it so it's more of an investment to help them get what they really want. So just keep it really clean. I always say no more than 2 colors and no more than 2 fonts. And please stop using those girly, swirly fonts that no one can read. I know you girls love that. They love the swirly, cursive looking things. But if you can't read it quickly at a glance, if you have to really stare and study, like, I can't read it, you lose people. So I much prefer an easy to read, a clean font. Don't use that crap no one can read.
yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap this up, I wanted to cover just a few more practical things when it comes to posting. One is make sure that you're using all the functions of an app. So if you're on Facebook, for instance, or Instagram, you might be someone who loves just to post, but you're not really a stories gal, or maybe vice versa. Maybe you love stories, but you don't really read people's posts. Just keep that in mind that there are people who live in one or the other most of the time. So if you only do posts and you never do any stories, you're missing a whole group of people who mainly live in stories and don't really pay attention to posts. So do both. I don't know if you can just share your experience or what you tend to do. Like, how do you go about that, making sure you hit both audiences?
I make sure whenever I post that I share to my story as well. But I also make sure that it's not just the picture. So you can click on it a couple of times so it'll show kind of the words. If you're hitting that pain point in the very first sentence, they're more likely to like actually go over and see your post because things get lost in social media too. Sometimes see things on people's stories and I don't, and until I see that and click on it, it's not even come across my feed. So, but I think doing that and not just sharing the picture because again, if there's no words on it, they're going to be like, what is this? They're like, yeah, that's a good picture of them or whatever. So make sure that that very first sentence kind of draws them in and add it to your stories. And then sometimes, even like a few days later, just to get it back in front of people's eyes, if my class hasn't launched yet, I'll repost it in my stories again and just be like, this class is starting soon. And then again, make sure it has that first sentence in it. And that seems to get more people to see your posts as well.
Yeah, that's great. And it reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier in the episode, that sometimes what gets in the way of posting is that we don't want to feel like we're bugging people or like posting too much. And I think it's just the way that these platforms are now. People just don't see everything that you do. Even the ones who follow you, they will not see everything you post because they want you to pay for ads. And so just posting more frequently makes it more likely that they will see something that you post. And if they're the right person, they're the people you're called to reach, they want to hear from you. They're following you for a reason. They want to hear from you. So just keep that in mind. You're not bugging them. And if you are, they'll unfollow and they're not your people. Another question I get from people is, what platform should I use? And my answer to that is the one that you like to use or like the most. So personally, I'm more of a Facebook guy. I prefer Facebook. And the reason I suggest using the one that you like the most, that you like to consume the content on the most for that type of content, is because you know what people are used to seeing on that platform. So because if you take what you do on Facebook and just do the same thing on TikTok, it probably won't do that great because people are used to seeing things a certain way, or they look a certain way, or they're done a certain way on TikTok, and that's different than how it's done on Facebook. So don't get overwhelmed trying to be perfect on every platform. Pick the one where you like the most or where your ideal client hangs out the most, like where they are. If that's Instagram, focus on Instagram. And you can put your post in other places. So I suggest just put it everywhere. It doesn't take much extra work to post it other places. Some even like Instagram, it'll post everything you do to Facebook. So it's easy just to do it in one spot. But as far as like interaction, messaging, like wherever you're a little bit more active, just focus on that platform and don't worry about trying to be perfect on every platform. And then utilize the scheduling tools. Like there are tools or ways that you can schedule it. If it takes a lot of work to manually stay on top of it, just batch some time to say, all right, so I've got my ideas, I've batch time my writing, and now I've got a bunch of posts that are ready to go. Now I'm going to sit down and I'm going to schedule out a bunch of posts. So you can schedule things and that can make it a little bit less overwhelming as well. And my final practical tip that I wanted to share is something that I've been taught is called a two-step post. And so when you've got something that like a call to action, which is this, you're asking someone to do something. If you got a call to action where you want people to click a link or like buy something or take a certain step, I find that it's best to do that in two steps. So the first step would be your post about the thing. Hey, who here would love to have less anxiety and overwhelm and feel blah 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 blah? Comment below, or hey, I'm running a 4-week series on peace that'll help you blah 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 blah. If you're interested, comment the word peace below and I'll send you the info. So Jess, if you want to talk a little bit about how you guys use two-step posts in your marketing.
We do this for our local studio on pretty much every class that we have, just because it's kind of the same idea as not putting the price on your graphic. You don't want to post the actual link because sometimes again people will just be scrolling and skimming through to look for the link, click on the link, and because that's what they want to see first before they even know if it's for them or not. Whenever we do a two-step process, we'll just have them comment some specific word below, and then we'll go to that certain person and get in their private messages and give them the link and thank you so much for signing up. I mean, sometimes on certain things, we actually will send out a little voice message on there just to kind of connect with them more. And what this does is it also breaks down the barrier, in my opinion, of going from this being something you're seeing on your phone or your computer to the fact that you're connecting with a real person. And so I think it takes that down and it kind of allows you to meet your students at first as well, especially if they're people that haven't come to your classes and they get to actually hear your voice. There's a real person connected to the other side of this. So I think it's good and for that way too. And I mean, that's where a lot of times whenever we get the most people come into our classes and it's whenever we do that two-step process.
Yeah, and the other thing that it does is it boosts the engagement of that post, which then helps it be seen by more people. And so there's a total, I would call like level 10 obnoxiousness that you can do if you want sometimes. And so, so this is how I was trained to do this. It was mostly regarding like a free training or some kind of lead magnet. But you have the post, comment the word whatever, and I'll shoot you the info. So someone will say, peace. And then you reply, great. Can I send you a DM with the info? But don't send it to them. And then they'll comment, sure. Then send them the DM and go back to that comment. Great, just sent it to you. And so instead of that post now having one comment that's like peace, there's like four comments for just that one spot. So every person now it generates like 3 or 4 comments instead of just one. And so it's a tricky way to kind of boost the engagement on a post and just have it be seen by more people. But on top of that, and so you can kind of do a hybrid of that and say, great, can I send you a DM? What I like about asking first is that it brings more attention and awareness to it. And then when you actually do send it, they're more likely to see it. I've done it in the past because I experimented a little bit where I just said, comment the word whatever. And so when they do, I would comment, great, just sent it to you. But then they don't always see it. So I just found like adding that little extra step sometimes. I wouldn't do this all the time, but if it's something that's a little bit bigger of an offering or something, or a little bit more important, then I would do that. But I think it's a great way to boost the engagement on a post, and that just helps it be seen by more people.
And then then they're aware that it wasn't just an impulsive thought, like, yeah, I want to know. And then they're like, no, yeah, I really do want to know. I don't know. It just kind of gives you 2 yeses before they even see what it is.
Well, Jessica, I know we could talk a lot longer about all this stuff. There's so much to cover when it comes to just social media in general, but also messaging and marketing. We actually have a workshop, one that I taught at our teacher retreat this fall, just on marketing and messaging. And if you feel like you need a little bit more help in refining your message, trying to figure out who am I for and how do I help them, and how do I package that up in ways to be seen by the right people, this workshop is for you. So if you're interested to learn more about that, reach out to us on social media or email or something, and we can make that link available to you. Kristen and I, also offer one-to-one coaching, or I guess it's 2-to-1 coaching. We offer different levels. There's some people that need a lot more hand-holding, and there are some that just need to be pointed in the right direction. So wherever you're at on that spectrum, we have something for you, and we can help talk through who do I help? How do I help them? And I actually have an exercise that I can walk people through just to help draw some of that stuff out and help you really refine your message and then come up with a plan for how do I start marketing? How do I start reaching more people? And how do I grow this business? So if that would be helpful for you, again, just reach out on social media or send an email or something, and we can talk through next steps. My friend, I hope you found that helpful. And if you did, can you hit that like button? If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button, and maybe leave a comment too. Let me know how this has helped you and other ideas, other things that maybe we didn't say or didn't cover that would help other yoga teachers. And thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.